Welcome to this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast. We're your favorite adventure travel couple. I'm Britt and my partner Ryan, and every Tuesday we share stories and tips to help inspire you to book that next trip. This week we're talking about all the emotions around leaving long term. So whether you're leaving for a long backpacking trip, whether you're becoming a digital nomad, moving away to college, just moving to a new city for a job opportunity, or moving into a van like we're about to do here in a couple weeks, there is a lot of excitement and emotions and anxieties and sometimes even guilt around moving away from your home, your hometown, or just the people you call home.
Right. My first time leaving home was to go to college.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably 4 hours away when I first started going to college.
I feel like that's a lot of people's first
Yeah.
time leaving home is to go away to university or go away to college.
Yeah, and it was probably a 4-hour drive by the time I started. Then they built a motorway and it got a lot quicker, but there was definitely like the homesickness feeling, like not seeing your parents all the time. Like I didn't know how often I was going to be coming home. I went home like once a month.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot to go home.
But I also had a car.
Yeah.
So I used to drive up and down. But like it was the first time, like I was 18, like, you know,
it's
first time going away from home.
So a lot of people's first time going away from home is like 18, leaving for university, leaving their parents for the first time, and getting to like step out on their own 2 feet.
Yeah.
So what were some of the feelings that you felt the first time? Like, did it really matter, or were you just like ready to get out?
I mean, I was definitely excited to go to college. I was a little bit nervous because it was like all new people, but I still had some friends that I went to school with that were going to the same college as me. So I like...
Yeah, because you're in Ireland. There's really only so many...
There's like 5 or 6 big ones. I don't even know off the top of my head.
there's only so many that you can go to.
Yeah. So I had people who were in the same school as me. So I had like a small social circle, and they were dotted around different areas at the start, so I wasn't too worried about that. I remember my mom drove me up to college the first week, like to help me move in and stuff. And
what did you feel when she was like driving away and like leaving?
That was really hard.
Yeah, that's the feeling.
That was really emotional. That was like, it was like just sadness. It was like,
there goes my mommy.
Yeah, like, you know, it's like, oh, I'm on my own now.
Yeah.
Like, it's really like, that was hard. And like, that never gets easier for me.
I know, you have a really hard time.
Yeah, that never gets easier for me.
For me, it was a little bit different because I left home in like waves.
Yeah.
And like, I never really had this strong sense of home. So I like moved out of my childhood home when I was 17 and my parents divorced, and like my dad stayed at the house, and my mom got a different house. So, and then I went and lived with my mom because that's where my sister was. But then my mom was literally never there.
Right.
So it was just me and my sister, and I very quickly had to step out of like being a kid and into like full-time
looking after your sister.
Looking after my sister, being responsible for her, for everyday things as well as like bigger things.
Yeah.
And then when I was 18, I was kicked out of my mom's home. And my relationship with my father was still a little rocky because I left and went and lived with my mom. And then I was kicked out of my mom's home, which then like propelled me into this very unhealthy relationship because I literally had nowhere to go and I needed somewhere to live. So 18-year-old Brittany was like, I guess I'll find a dude with money. And that's exactly what I did. Ended up being a very toxic relationship. And then from there, I like moved back to my dad with like just a little bit, like a couple months before moving into university.
Right. Yeah.
So I had this like roundabout, like weird relationship with home.
So you had moved in and out a couple times before you even went to college.
Yeah, before I even went to college, I feel like I like moved in, moved out, moved in, moved out, was on my own, then I wasn't on my own, then I was on my own again, then I wasn't on my own again. So I had this like very strange relationship the first time of like moving out because it wasn't so straightforward and it was all kind of abrupt.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have time to be nervous or excited or like, it was all just fight or flight.
Yeah, because I planned to go to college. You didn't plan for that to happen. It just happened right away.
Yeah, everything just kind of happened to me like all at once. So, I mean, my emotions were a little bit different. Mine were like, I have to survive. So I was very much in survival.
Yeah.
Which I think, unfortunately, is pretty common for people as well around that age.
Yeah.
But then I went on my first big trip, and I never felt like I was leaving home so much as I felt like I was going towards and I was looking for home.
Right.
Like I felt like in my first few travels, like I perpetually like looked for home.
Yeah, you were trying to find like a sense of community, a sense of like somewhere you belong.
Yeah, and I still do. I talk about community all the time because like that was such an important part that like I was lacking. So me leaving was very much like I'm searching.
Yeah.
I'm searching for where I belong. I'm searching for that home. I'm searching for that community that like I didn't have built in.
Yeah.
And then you did your big trip to university, and then you started coming to the States.
Yeah, every summer, like for 3 summers in a row, I came over here to work on a J1 visa.
And how was that kind of like, because that was like back and forth. So that was like waves of coming to the States before your big move to the States.
Yeah, I mean, I was coming, it was safe. It was a safe move because I was coming to a place where I knew I was going to stay.
Yeah.
I had a job lined up.
You're staying with family.
And I was staying with my family, like my aunt and my cousins, which was really, really fun. It was like living in a sorority house or a frat house. Like, well, it was more of a sorority house.
You were living in a sorority.
It was me
all
and a bunch
ladies.
of girls. So it was definitely a sorority house, and Ryan, the groundskeeper. Yeah, so like the first time I remember, I started working in a bar, and I'd never bartended really before. I'd done some small stuff, but like I was literally thrown into the wolves, like left by myself on, what was like Memorial Day weekend or 4th of July, one of the big weekends.
That's a huge weekend to go out if you're listening from somewhere outside. We're in the Jersey Shore, and that's where he's talking about, which is one of the biggest weekends of the year.
Yeah, so. And I was just left to myself. So like that was like fight or flight mode that whole night. Let me tell you.
But when you were leaving to come
when
to
I was
the
leaving
States,
to come,
you were excited.
I was very excited.
You loved coming here.
I did.
Remember.
It was my favorite place.
He was like, I love it here. And then that ultimately made you want to stay here and move.
Of course, yeah.
But I think that was probably a lot more emotion provoking when you were making, like when you were talking to your parents being like, I think I'm going to go to the US and I'm going to stay.
Well, like that was never, I always wanted to, but that was never like really my plan because I had no way of doing that because of visas. I wasn't going to be able to just come and stay. Okay,
but when you found out that you were going to stay, how did
after
feel?
The 3 summers of doing the J1s for 3 months a year or whatever, I came back for a year on a graduate visa after I got my master's. And I was here for a year, and after a month I found a job offer. I was looking around different job offers when I got here. And I got an offer for a job and with a green card where he would sponsor me to stay and get permanent residency. Yeah. And I was probably here a month. And I remember I got the phone call and he was like, how would you like this? And I was like, I didn't know how to answer him. Like I said, of course. But like I was never expecting to get that opportunity. Yeah. And I was very lucky to get that. I'm very, very grateful to have gotten that. Mm-hmm. And that's when it kind of like hit me, and I called my parents, and I was really excited, and they were like, "Oh, you can stay, that's great." Like, but in Ireland, like it's always looked as a great thing to get a green card. Mm-hmm. It's always seen as a great thing to get a green card. Like so many people talk about it, like, "Oh, they had a chance to get it and they didn't take it. They're so silly to let it go." Like, I was like, I couldn't believe it because it's really hard to get them.
Yes.
But that was the first time that I get really, really sank in that like I was going to be staying permanently.
Yeah. And what'd you feel? Like, what was going through your head?
I was excited and nervous. I was like, I don't know who this person, like, I knew who he was, but, like, I don't know these people. Yeah. I don't know, like, why are they offering me this? Like, what's the catch? Am I about to get taken advantage of? Everyone gets taken advantage of in New York City.
Unfortunately, a lot of people. In that situation, a lot of people, unfortunately, get taken advantage of.
Yeah, and I was like, there's got to be something up with this. This is too good to be true. So I'm, like, scared and excited, but a little bit guilty about not being at home.
Yeah.
But like, cause like you're no longer just a drive away. You're no longer just like 4 hours on a drive. Now it's like a whole flight. It's a lot of money to fly out. Especially like if, like it's expensive for me to fly home, but like if everyone was coming to come see me, that's very expensive because it's like 4 people. Yeah. You know? And like it's not realistic because things at home right now, like my mom's not coming out to visit me. She's looking after my grandmother.
Yeah, she's a full-time caretaker.
Exactly.
She can't you can't just like tell people, oh, like I'm not going to be here.
Exactly.
She's taking care of people.
So it's tough. I mean, I've been here like 6 years now,
I think,
6 or 7 years
I think about
full time.
6 years, yeah.
And I've been home pretty much once a year, every time. And now this is going to be the first year where I don't know when I'm going to be going home next. And I mean, like a month is not. I mean, once a year is like, for me, I don't think it's enough time to see everyone. You know, you get 2 weeks off a year when you're working. And like you go home for 1 week and then you want to go and explore a little bit for another week when you're doing whatever, and like it's just for a very limited time.
That's the thing too, and when you're in the United States and if you're working, you know, a 9-to-5 job, the normal, you know,
you get your federal holidays plus 2 weeks. That's typically how it goes.
Which means every holiday you take, you feel obligated
to go home.
That,
or to go visit someone.
Yeah, so you'd never get the chance to go on another vacation because your vacation, the only time you get off is to go home and visit, which is probably a little bit like.
Yeah, I mean
guilty.
it is, because you also want to go and do things. You know, you also want to go see the world. You want to go and explore. You want to go. You're there working for something. You know, it's not just to go home every now and then. Like, you know.
You're not living. You're not living if you're just working to go home. And you're not getting to have those experiences that you want to have in life. We just got back from 6 months in Southeast Asia. And this was not my first time on a big backpacking trip or a big travel. Like, I spent years in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
This was your first time on a large backpacking trip. And I think when you go on when I was leaving, before I left, I was definitely, I was terrified because I'm like, how am I going to do this? You know, those things like start creeping into your heads and like the doubt of like, well, I'm a woman, I'm going by myself. You know, everyone tells horror stories. Like, I'm going to get stolen and trafficked and all these things. And like, I just tell myself, well, in the States that happens. So, I mean, it doesn't really matter where you are. Bad things happen everywhere. It wasn't my first time ever solo traveling. I actually solo traveled quite a lot. It was just the first time going on a one-way ticket solo.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of nervousness. I was really excited. I was anxious to get out of here and to like go explore. I felt really guilty because I had to leave my dogs with my father. And that was probably the biggest thing I'd ever felt like leaving home. That's like, I'm leaving my dogs with my dad. I am a bad dog mom.
Yeah, you felt guilty
I am the worst dog mom ever.
You feel guilty on both parts because you're like, the dogs now don't know where I am and they're with my dad. So they're confused. Yeah. And then you're also like, now I've also burdened my dad with these 2 dogs he has to look after.
So I felt bad.
Doubly guilty.
Yeah. So this is what I did to try to like make it less hard on him. I pre-bought like all their dog food, enough for like 6 months, so he didn't have to buy their dog food. But that meant there was an entire closet in his house just filled with bags of dog food. And I'm like, this is everything they need while I'm not here. I ended up staying for longer, so he had to learn how to go to Costco and buy it. But yeah, that's what I try to do. And then I also, because to get to, well, there were 3 dogs at the time, 2 large dogs and teeny tiny dog. To get them all to the groomers and everything, he's just like not doing. And so I set up one of those groomers that would like come to the house in like a van, and they have like a van.
It's like a mobile grooming van.
It's a mobile grooming van, and they come to your house. So I like pre-booked them, like multiple groomings, and prepaid for them before I left, so that they would
be at least groomed.
So they would be groomed and fed. I'm like, if they're groomed and fed, they'll be okay.
That's 90% of their needs.
So that's what I had set up. I left him with a closet full of dog food and a groomer van that came to the house.
But I mean, you've got a huge backyard and everything.
Yeah,
they're really happy here.
He has a huge backyard. It's a fenced in. It's almost an acre fenced in that they can like run and play in. They're fine. Yeah. All he does is open the door and let them outside and feed them.
Yeah, and they're happy. They
and
keep
they're
each other
fine.
company.
But I felt.
Yeah, guilty.
I felt so guilty, and like I miss my dog so much when I'm not there. That's like my biggest.
Yeah. But that's also part of the reason why we're doing this, because they can come with us.
Because they can come with us. Now, before we went to Southeast Asia this time, I had that same guilt, but my father had been more used to helping with them, so I wasn't as worried about them, and I was like, they're gonna be fine. And I had a return date, so I knew that I'm like, okay, we're gonna be home in 6 months, so like I'm not worried. So I didn't really feel anything but excitement. I was really excited because when you're someone who's a big traveler, a big backpacker, you've gotten to know yourself on this almost like painfully self-aware level. Like I am painfully self-aware to a point where I'm like, gosh, just like be less.
Turn off for a second.
Yeah, just turn off. Just be less, please. Or you're painfully self-aware, and then you enter into this partnership where you were very much living and had been living like the 9 to 5, like the New York City, you know.
It wasn't 9 to 5, but yeah.
Yeah, you were like
it was more than
6
that.
to midnight every day. But that like New York City like hustle and bustle, like the New York City hustle is where you were living. And I was living in entrepreneur, started my own social media agency, doing content creation, like living out of a backpack. And then our worlds, even though we had known each other for years, like collided. And I was now like a little bit being brought into like your New York City hustle, which I grew up outside of New York City, so I'm not unaccustomed to. And my like freeness, making my own schedule. I remember you going to me at one point and saying, wow, you're just running errands in the middle of the day. Like, I can't believe you do that. And I'm like, well, I make my schedule around that because I need an afternoon break. So I know that if I like grind or hustle till like 1 o'clock, then from like 1 to 3, I can go run my girl errands, which sometimes involve like, you know, the TJ Maxx, the Home Goods, the stop at the bank.
Yeah, and then you go back to work when you get home.
And then I go back to work for a little bit when I go home, like stop at Pilates, like do my whole thing, and then I can work for a couple more hours. Where you were literally like 6 a.m. alarm clock, sometimes early. If it was 6 a.m., you were lucky that day. And then you were working and you were coming home at 10, 11 o'clock at night to like do it again the next day. So you're kind of like absorbed into this. There's no time for you to like be self-aware. There's no time for that like growth. There's no time to think about anything except
other than the work.
Survival. At that point, you're in survival. You're in work survival mode. And I was in a different stage of like creation and building clients and like building on my clientele and building out my business and all these things, right? And I had traveled extensively. So like bringing you into that and like being partners with someone who like didn't quite know themselves on the same level that I knew myself, and then taking you out of your 9 to 5 and your extreme hustle culture and into Southeast Asia where things are a little bit slower, where things are like, it's all right, we'll do it later, you know, into that kind of lifestyle. I was really excited for you to
unwind a little bit,
but like also in a selfish way to like see that part of me, to like see what, because I know that there was a piece of me that like you couldn't connect with, like you couldn't understand. And I think bringing you there, I was really excited. I was like, he's gonna get it now. He's gonna understand why my priorities are different. He's gonna understand where my life philosophies are coming from.
I definitely did see that, especially when like we started mixing with some people from your social circle in like Bali and Lombok. I was like, oh wow, this is what it's about. Yeah. And like it's an amazing lifestyle that they have there.
And it's not that these people are working any less. It's
they're still hustling.
They're probably working more, to be quite honest.
But when you're done at the end of the day, you're in paradise.
But when you're done at the end of the day, you go, oh yeah, I'm gonna go for a surf, or oh, there's good waves coming in. I'm gonna take the afternoon and I'm gonna go surfing, and then I'll get back to it like this evening, or oh, I'm gonna get up early this morning. And those are normal conversations where it's like, and these people are like highly successful in standard terms of success.
Of course.
So to see that those lifestyles are there, and me knowing they're there and have lived them, I was really excited to bring you to see that. I was really excited to watch you experience these things for the first time. So I think going in it for me was a lot of excitement when we were going to Southeast Asia. Yeah. What were you feeling on your first big trip out?
Terrified.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrified.
Fair enough.
What am I doing? But I also had you. So that helped a little bit because I knew you'd done it before. I knew you were like an expert at it because you've been doing it for like 3 years prior.
I am quite the expert.
Yeah. So I was like, I think I lent very heavily on you, especially towards the start.
A lot.
Very heavily on you.
And we fought
for like,
over it.
Yeah, over like decision making and things to do and like what we should do next and things like that. I was like, I don't know anything about this. Like, you've done it before. You should know. And you're like, no, you need to live your own journey. You need to make your own decisions. And then it took me a while to start doing that again.
A long time.
It took me a while, but eventually I started doing it. Yeah. I felt like I was completely a novice at something, and that's kind of hard when you're like, okay, so I spent the last few years becoming somewhat of an expert in my field. Yeah. And into a position where I'm respected and I know, or I can find the information that I need right away, and I know what I'm talking about. and then I go into this whole new facet of my like entire life, and I'm like, I don't know anything. Like, and then you're like, oh, what do you want to do? And I'm like, I don't even know what to do. Like, I don't know. I'm like, get this like decision paralysis.
And that came in our professional life where it came from, okay, like I was looking at him, I'm like, what do you want? What tasks do you want to be in charge of? And he's like, I don't even know what tasks there are.
Yeah.
And then when I would say like the different tasks, I'm like, okay, so there's YouTube editing, there's short form video editing, there's audio editing,
there's pitching, there's
pitching, there's brand relations.
There's taxes.
There's taxes.
There's like tracking expenses and like all that.
Like a data organization. Like all these different facets of what is in our business and in content creation and involved in running a social media management company and involved in partnering with brands and partnering with different companies and businesses and running a podcast and running a YouTube channel and running a TikTok and an Instagram and all of these things and all of these facets. And he's like, I don't even know what's involved. When you're like, oh, do you want to be in charge of the Instagram? He's like, yeah. But like, what's involved with that?
I didn't have Instagram prior to this. I didn't have an Instagram account. I still don't have a personal Instagram.
But you also looked at the traveling, and like when I would ask you like, what do you want to do today? You'd be like, I don't know. You've been here before.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yes, but the growth doesn't happen unless you're also looking at it like, I want to do this A, B, and C. I want to explore A, B, and C. So when you were going into Southeast Asia, I don't think that was something that you even thought about.
Because, all right, here, like I spent years, and at the first couple of years, I was making mistake after mistake after mistake in my career. Like, and eventually I got to the point where I was no longer making mistakes, and I could correct them if I saw them coming. I would like, and I was very good at it. And I was like, that was a huge part of my identity, is like not making mistakes and like doing the right thing and making sure, like foreseeing problems that were coming up.
Yeah.
And now I'm in this whole new area where I don't know. So if I pick the wrong thing, it could be disastrous. But that's the wrong kind of thinking. Like that is not healthy.
No.
At all. But
you
like,
just have to do it.
You just have to do it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And then you just pivot and make it work or do something else or whatever. But don't get too focused on being perfect. And I do struggle with that still. Like perfection, like I try so hard to make everything perfect and I'm never ever happy. But I'm getting better at the point where it's like, it's good enough. Get it out there. Like, you know, especially with content creation stuff. It's like, that's good enough. It has to go out. You can't spend days and days and days.
No, and it's like an artist. Like any artist that's creating something, a lot of people think of art as just in the traditional sense.
Right.
So a lot of people think of art and being creative as, oh, they're painting a picture, they're drawing something. So like that, and that is art. That is 1000% art. But like also making a YouTube video is also art. So to get to the point of being like, oh, it's good enough. You hear a lot of painters and a lot of artists struggle with it, that the painting is never done because it's not good enough. But it's the same thing when you're a photographer or a videographer and you're looking at this like vlog, right? Yeah. And you're like, I could change this, I could do this, I can alter this. But it gets to a point where you have to look at it and be like, I am done. And it is great. It is great. It is 1% better than my last one. It has to go out because the only way to get better and to grow in that area is
to make little steps. That's it.
Yeah,
you're
but
never gonna go.
And it's also to get things out consistently. So if you're working on one video for 3 weeks, it's
not.
It's too much. You gotta call it.
Mm-hmm. And then like just circling back to leaving for Southeast Asia and the whole career change and everything. Not just like, sometimes I struggle with what people think about me. It's like definitely a flaw of mine.
I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's human.
Well, yeah.
I think every human to a certain degree goes, I don't want other people to think I'm weird. I want to fit in.
Yeah.
You know,
so like a lot of it, like I definitely felt very nervous to tell my parents.
Yeah.
Like I waited until we were telling them in person in Portugal, like probably 3 months before we actually left out. And I wasn't sure how they were going to react if they thought I'm crazy. I think they still might think I'm a little bit crazy. I'm not sure. But
they probably just call it how they see it.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm much happier doing this.
Absolutely.
And, you know, if you don't try things,
you don't know.
You don't know.
If you were to look at yourself.
If I look back.
Yeah.
At 65 years old, retirement age, and I was still doing my whole career, what I had been doing, I would be very disappointed in myself.
Because that was your first job after university, too.
Yeah.
Which is...
And that was also, I felt very guilty leaving. Because
I know you did. You had so much guilt leaving.
It was really hard because this guy gave me a shot. Like, he, like, gave me a good job. He got my papers for me. He was a good boss.
He was a good boss.
It was a very demanding workload, but, like, he did definitely take care of me, and I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah. You felt a lot of guilt.
It was very tough. It was a tough decision.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I was like, I sat down and talked to him about it, and he understood too, because he's like, he would have been upset if I went to leave for a competitor or something like that. Yeah. But he's like, if you're going to go and live your life, that it's different. You know, he's like, I wish I could do it, but like he's ingrained in it now. His whole family is living off of this. Like that's their entire income. Like so, they're very much tied to it, and he sees it in his own son, who's my age. And I'm sure he feels a little bit of guilt for that too. Yeah.
You feel a lot of guilt.
I do.
You worry a lot about how other people are feeling around you, what other people did. You feel a lot of responsibility to pay them back. You feel a lot of guilt.
I don't like to owe anyone for anything. I really don't. I can't handle that feeling. I don't like favors. I don't like anything like that. I don't want to feel like I owe someone something. And so I try and make good on everything. Yeah. You know?
You got the Catholic guilt.
Something like that, yeah, I guess.
That's what you get.
Yeah.
You get the Catholic guilt.
But, so like, yeah, turning off, like, giving up all those responsibilities and those, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Promises, I guess, or like obligations to other people. It was tough.
Yeah, because you were like, I'm no longer going to fulfill all those things because I'm leaving. It's almost like, I'm leaving you behind. And like,
as a person, I tend to, I'll move mountains for other people, but then for myself, I won't do that much. And I do struggle with that. And I've been working on it to try and like live for me and try and do things that I want to do for my life.
And we talk about that.
Yeah.
A lot. I'm like, what do you want? What's going to make Ryan happy? Yeah. You need to make decisions for Ryan because at the end of the day, your only obligation and your sole purpose as someone who's young with, no dependents, no one but themselves to take care of, your obligation is to find what gives you happiness from the inside out and what you can do for yourself to be happy and like illuminate that happiness. And that doesn't mean that every single day, all day long, you're gonna have this like toxic positivity and this like endless happiness. That's not what that means. It means that you can create your own happiness no matter where you are.
Yeah. I remember the first time you asked me, what does Ryan want? I couldn't answer the question. I didn't know.
I remember that. It was so frustrating for me. And that's one of those things I say when I'm like painfully aware. When like, I'm painfully aware and I know exactly what's going to make me happy and I know where I need to be and I know the steps I need to take. It's only a matter of them myself taking those steps and going on that journey to make sure I maintain that happiness, which can be a challenge and hard in itself. And it was really frustrating for me that you didn't have that same self-awareness that when I would say, what does Ryan want? And you would like, I'd see like this internal implosion of like, oh, boom, 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 boom. Like, what I want?
What do you mean what I want?
What I want? What do you mean? You mean what I have to do? And I'm like, no, what do you want? What is going to make Ryan happy? What brings you happiness from the inside? Yeah. And like, I can't answer that question. The only person in the world that can answer it is you. Yeah. Now, if you were to look at Ryan 6 months ago, or anyone 6 months ago, a listener who is thinking about going long-term traveling for the first time, or moving to a new city, or leaving behind what is home and those people that create home, what would you be telling your younger self, or what would you be telling them? Like someone who's now on the other side of it?
I think you have to definitely give yourself a date to be gone. Yeah. That's like, that was the one thing that we actually did that, because we were planning on leaving for a while before we actually did. And
it was talks.
And it was all talk, and we were like doing like little things, but it was never the priority. So if you're serious about doing it, you need to set a date, whether it's 12 months down the road, whether it's like, we set our date as January 1st of 2023. We ended up actually flying out on January 4th because the flights were cheaper, but we were ready by January 1st. Not ready, because you're never ready, but like we were 95% of the way there. Yeah. and we tied up all the loose ends as much as we could and things like that.
I agree with all of that. I think if I were to look at my younger self before like one of my big jumps out into the world, right? I would say you're not gonna be ready.
You're never ready.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Leave before you're ready. Do it before you're ready. I would say yes, just pick a date and just go and do it. You will figure it all out. Mm-hmm. You will figure everything out that you need to figure out. Just go. Like right now, we are about, 2 weeks out of moving out of this van, hopefully. Mm-hmm. And we are not ready.
We are not ready.
We still have more stuff to do in the van. The inside stuff on the van, like we know the furnace works, we know the fridge works, we don't know if the water works, we don't know if the hot water heater works, we don't have our solar set up yet, like we don't have any of that, so technically we're not ready to go.
No.
But we're going anyway, because we'll figure it out, like we'll do it on the...
Yeah, we just held a second garage sale of our...
Trying to get rid of all the last bits of our stuff.
Yeah, this weekend we just sold most of our stuff, and anything left is going to go donate. And then I'm selling my car this week. So yeah, we gotta get moving.
We just have to get moving.
But that's like, I'm taking time off. I'm not doing any YouTube this week, and it's gonna free me up to do whatever's left on the van that I know about. I need to fix. I know I have a bunch of stuff to do, but I think I can get it done in a week.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm prioritizing things that need to be done. If there's something I can fix while we're on the road, I'm gonna do it on the road. But everything that needs to be done now, while I have my tools here and like a workshop, I do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is it for this week's episode of the Rangeless Travel Podcast. Hopefully next week we are filming this from somewhere on the road, or maybe we won't be, who knows. But we will keep you guys updated. If you want to stay more updated, go to our Instagram and our TikTok. We upload daily on Instagram and pretty much daily on TikTok as well. You can also find us on YouTube, or maybe you're listening here on Spotify. Until next week.
Bye.
Bye.